All right, so this is going to be a little different because this is going to be my interview with actually a friend of mine. This is the creator of such work as Red Knight, Davida, and the new horror anthology Ladybug, not the French animated one. So this is my good friend Justin Kerstelli, aka TheRealManos.
Hey everybody, hello, how are you?
So basically, this interview is to help promote your new work, your continuing work on Red Knight and the Kickstarter.
Correct, yes.
Yeah. So basically, this interview is going to be talking about like all of like just certain questions about like your time creating Red Knight and your other work as well, and why people should look into reading Red Knight because I think it's awesome. And yeah. So I guess the first question is, what was the idea behind Red Knight?
Red Knight came, excuse me, Red Knight came to me when I was a teenager. I was a big fan, well I still am, of Spider-Man, and when I was a teenager, I was doing a lot of fan comics, and I could not draw, much like today, I can't draw anything. And I did a lot of tracing, using tracing paper and putting Spider-Man in these cool shots. I did this from like, I don't know, 8 years old to my late teens. And I had this neat story idea where Spider-Man runs into a slightly younger hero who's grown up like after him, you know, maybe like 5 years or so younger.
Yeah.
And they have an adventure, and there's the scene where they're talking in a diner. And the hero is really enamored of Spider-Man. And it gets awkward and weird. Like, Spider-Man doesn't know how to relate to this only slightly younger hero than him, and feels it's weird that he's inspired someone already in his life. And the hero is slightly less impressed with him than he thought he was going to be. That hero turned out to be Todd McLean, Red Knight. Now, I renamed Red Knight a couple times since I came up with this, but the character is pretty much the same, outside of the costume and the powers and the character and the backstory is all the same. I'm proud of the fact that I kept that pretty intact. So I really liked the character, and I was like, well, I can't sell this. It's fan comics from some company. I'll just take the character I made and start kind of working on that. And that's when the development started, and I came up with this young guy who has super strength and really cheap gadgets, like he's Batman on a tight budget.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I eventually arrived at the name Red Knight after a couple of tries for different character names, and I kind of started him on this road of I took the core idea of him being a fan of an older hero and being slightly disappointed, and put him towards other heroes who would disappoint him. And he is, excuse me, he is like I said, a young hero with super strength and cheap gadgets. He wants to be a hero more than anything, very much like Luffy wants to be a huge pirate. He wants to be a superhero. And you have to have a license in order to operate in his universe. And it's impossible. It's hard to get because let's say there's two options. If you can get a license by joining the government and becoming a government-sanctioned hero, but the problem is they'll send you to wherever they feel like it.
Like in the army.
Like in the army. You can't just I'll protect my hometown, and they'll go, no, we're going to send you into space or to another country.
Okay, where am I being sent to? I hope it's somewhere good like Italy or Japan. Oh, Kansas.
Yeah, they'll send you to wherever. And he kind of, even as a young man, he's like 23. He understands that he doesn't want to do that. And then the other option is being a corporate licensed hero, but that costs you $100,000 a year. He doesn't have that money. So he he goes with the dumber third option, which is being an outlaw vigilante. So he's being chased by the cops. One of them is Martha Brown, a detective who has been trained to combat super people like him. And she sees this potential in him. So what she does is she makes him an offer to secretly train him how to fight crime because he really doesn't know anything. And he'll help her out on her cases. And that was kind of the ball rolling I had on the story. And that's where we are now.
So I wanted to ask actually about well, it's before I go into the actual question, it's kind of funny. I remember when I first talked to you about Red Knight, when we first had made acquaintances and whatnot. I had this thing of, so did you base Red Knight's design off of Midnighter? And you stopped and said, "Oh my God, I think I did that unintentionally." You had that moment of, "Oh my God," because I was like, so did you because I remember I asked that question years ago, and you had that moment of, "Oh shit," I think I did. That wasn't intentional, but when I first look at Red Knight, I always had this look it very much reminded me of Midnighter's, not like you said, not to say you copied it. I swear I'm not saying that. Just like the helmet and the jacket kind of design. Just so it's kind of the similar costume design. Not to say it's a similar character. Oh, sorry.
Oh, sorry. No, I'm sorry. Yeah, finish up.
Yeah, I just thought that was kind of funny that that you were like, oh gosh, you had that moment of there was I remember the existential dread in your voice. So getting back on topic, the question I wanted to ask is actually the next question. Following that character you mentioned, Martha Brown, where did Martha Brown come from for you?
Martha came from, well, first off, after I came up with the fact that I was going to do the character, the supporting cast came next, and I had been fascinated with the character Jean DeWolf from Spider-Man. I remember lamenting that, after her character was killed off, they never really replaced her as, a character. No one kind of filled that void.
And you notice that, that's always the case when Spider-Man has, a cop, his Gordon, they get rid of him, Detective Stacy, Captain Stacy, and then Jean DeWolf.
Yeah. She kind of filled in the space from Captain Stacy, and then nobody kind of filled in the void from her. So I was like, oh, you know what? Todd McLean is kind of a Spider-Man type of guy. He is kind of a Spider-Man, Luffy, Steven Universe type of person, disguised as a Midnighter type of person or a Batman guy. He likes that look, but he's not that type of person at all, which I think is kind of funny. With Martha, that kind of started the ball rolling. I wanted to create that kind of character for Red Knight. And I was a big fan of the TV show The Greatest American Hero, which was about this teacher who gets a super suit from aliens, and at the same time he's with this FBI agent who is sort of a friend of his, and his name is Bill. Bill comes up with this idea of hey, we could secretly work together. Let's do that. And that kind of started. I had that idea of instead of the cop character, like a Commissioner Gordon or something, direct, getting help from the superhero. It's kind of the other way around, where the detective cop agent character is sort of directing the superhero, and that's kind of where I got that notion from, where I was like, oh, I can go in this direction. And then I started thinking about different archetypes, and I came across Martha, and she just stuck. And what I'm really proud of about Martha is, at first she was just a cop really good at her job, but the more I developed the story for Red Knight, more I started really getting fascinated with her, because frankly, Tom McLean, the Red Knight, he is a character I kind of just knew from day one, and I haven't, developed too much outside of what just, has already been built. But Martha was a character, was kind of a clean slate when I first created her. So she's done like a lot of development since then. I'm very proud of. She's kind of the first character I created that I kind of like built up.
Yeah. Okay.
From nothing. Whether than instead of just like knowing the character instantly.
All right.
So yeah, she's very determined, has a pretty dark backstory, which I have not really alluded to much. She's someone who used to believe in the common good, but has kind of like been really burned by society more than once. So she is kind of rediscovering her faith through working with Red Knight, and she doesn't really realize yet she's doing it to herself. She doesn't realize that he is teaching her almost as much as she is teaching him.
That's cool. So I guess like let's talk about the new story arc, the one for the help with Kickstarter. Like what's it like? What's the whole deal there?
Well, like I said, he is this young hero who's grown up, and actually, I'm kind of like with this arc, I'm getting full circle into my original idea of Tom McLean meeting his heroes as a superhero now, and kind of being slightly disappointed by it. And I'm going a little bit of a step further with that, because in the Red Knight universe, there's this Justice League Avengers type of team called the Union of Superheroes, and they are a government-sanctioned team filled with heroes that have been around for a couple decades, some of which have been his favorite heroes. One of them has gone rogue and has been in prison in Guantanamo Bay for years. He's escaped and has committed a murder on the streets of Norfolk, which is Red Knight and Martha's hometown. And this investigation leads them to find him, right in the middle of the city, and he is cooking up some sort of evil plot with a army of superpowered terrorists. While at the same time, the Union of Superheroes have tracked him down, and they are on a collision course with wackiness. And the arc is essentially Bullet Train, and
which I still love that name.
Isn't that great? I love that name. He is a speedster, and he's super strong, which is not a aspect I've seen added to speedsters very much. So I thought, well, how can I make a speedster even more dangerous? He has a plan that he hasn't really revealed yet. That's going to go on in Norfolk. He and his army start battle with the Union of Superheroes, and Red Knight and Martha Brown are caught in the middle, and they're trying to figure out what he's actually trying to accomplish. And at the same time, he is seeing his heroes. One of the leaders of the Union is his favorite hero, Captain Danger, who is a kind of Superman type. And I always thought, wouldn't it be funny if Superman was kind of Guy Gardner outside of like the his public image? And Captain Danger was a guy who was just as optimistic, but over the years, it's kind of like caused him to become really jaded and cynical. Now he's just kind of going through the motions, and he's kind of frankly bitter about it. And Bullet Train has become like a straight up terrorist. So he is like seeing really different ugly sides of the heroes that he grew up with and loved.
Yeah.
That's what the bulk of this story is about.
Getting onto that, like talking about like superheroes, being, disillusioned or like becoming, switching sides. Do you ever think that becomes like a tired trope Manos? And do you think you're kind of feeding into that, or do you think like do you have like a solid idea of like changing that kind of narrative?
See, it can be, but to be honest, it's a trope for a reason because it does happen. Like, you don't have to go any further than politics.
Yeah, that's true.
Where you see a lot of people, politics or like law enforcement, people get into something, or the military, any of these kind of like institutions, they get into it because they believe in it. Maybe they see the corruption, but they think maybe they can be a positive change, and some of them succeed, and some of them are changed by the system instead of the other way around.
Yeah,
and I think if superheroes existed, if there's a culture of superheroes in our world, they would be no different. They would be affected by these things. And I do have like this story, this backstory in the Red Knight universe of things that have been happening, where things started in the early 20th century. And then things started getting messy. But I won't really get into that too much specifically because there's a few plot points related to this story, actually, that start. This is the story arc. I'm doing the Kickstarter for issue 8. Issue 8 is the middle part of the story arc, by the way. And this is the fun one because this is where all the big action happens. But you get to start to realize like there is something amiss in this universe, and you find that along with Red Knight. Martha already knows about this stuff, so that kind of feeds into her character.
Okay. I would say like I am curious about like to see where this goes because the story itself sounds pretty interesting. Manos is sending me the issues that are published, so I will be doing reviews on that. So stay tuned for that at some point. Yeah, it's a solid story, and I love the core of it is that it's just he's a very hopeful, albeit a slightly naive superhero, trying to not be wrapped up in all this cynical bullshit, and I really do enjoy that. When it comes to creating these characters and creating this universe, like, how long does it take? Because I imagine like there's a lot of ideas, then you like tear it down and rebuild it, and tear it down and rebuild it. Like, what's the process of making this world and universe for you?
Well, let's see. It kind of all started from the character, and I built out of it. And then, of course, my influences. I try not to be too influenced by superhero comics and in general. I wanted to incorporate a lot of things from my own life, the world around me, as well as film and television. I'm very influenced by, because I didn't want. Because some things I see in comics, either done in the mainstream comics or even in independent comics, is like this tendency to just wash and repeat, tropes and scenes that we've seen before, and in superhero comics, and kind of becomes a copy on a copy. So I try to be careful about that.
That's true. Yeah.
And let's see. As far as like building the universe, it's just I'm kind of like heading towards like this story that I kind of it's like generally like pulling a thread. Like I have this idea like, oh, if this character's like this, then why? And then the more questions I ask myself about like characters or universe, the more it leads me to answers, and also leads me to more questions, which is kind of fun. And to be honest, when you're a writer and you start working on like a world for your characters, whether it be a small world or like a advanced, large, expanded universe, it's always so fun. Like, it's almost, once you start getting going, you get in the rhythm of it, it almost feels like you're not really creating it. It's kind of odd in that way once you get going with it. So yeah, it's basically just asking myself questions about these characters, and it just leads me to interesting answers. Sometimes answers I did not expect, which is weird because I'm making this up. But sometimes I surprise myself.
Aren't we all just making up as we go along?
Exactly.
So I wanted to talk about your horror work real quick, in case the viewers get interested about that, like Davita and your horror anthology Ladybug. When you're writing horror, what do you find important to you when you're doing horror or darker stuff? Like, what do you do to make it like? What do you think is scary, and do you think what you think is scary? Do you think that's going to apply to someone else? Do you think your own fears and your own, what you think is scary, and do you think that applies to someone else, or do you try to think, hey, maybe this person will find it scary even if I don't?
I try not to figure out what scares other people. I think you'll find if you read or listen to interviews with famous horror authors, like Stephen King, Junji Ito, Anne Rice, Clive Barker, you'll discover they'll talk about their own inner fears, and even if they don't really apply that to their stories, you can kind of see where they're going. Famously, Edgar Allan Poe's claustrophobic and afraid of being buried alive. And of course, Stephen King is very obvious in his work about communicating his fears and fears and experiences. And yeah, I am a big believer in art in general, of all types of art, being communication. So what scares me is usually incorporated in my books in some way. Mostly in my horror. And if what scares me, I'm sure scares some other people or connects with other people. So we try not to second guess. I think as a writer and a creator, trying to second guess the audience is not really a good idea. Unless you really know your audience, but I don't recommend it. So I usually start with what are the things that scare you? What are the things that make you laugh? What are the things that you find sexy or exciting? And you just go with that. And look, some other person is going to feel the same way. It's a small world, so everybody. I don't know. I think we've all had these experiences where we were like, well, I'm the only person who feels like that, and then you really discover oh, I'm very wrong. So in the cases of Davita, Davita is a little bit. It's a horror novel. It's a vampire novel, but it does kind of also reach into dark fantasy a lot, and it does deal with some things that the loss of family and not being able to keep connections. Religious tyranny is a fear of mine. That's in there as well. As I don't know if I am afraid of organized crime in general, but just the concept of meeting those type of people is kind of frightening to me. People that will just kill you and get away with it is kind of frightening to me. That there's a power structure to protect them. That's kind of terrifying, and I incorporated that quite a bit in Davita. Ladybug and Caprice, Caprice I deal with serial killers, and of course that's an easy fear to have. Ladybug is an anthology book, so I incorporate a few different fears in that one. And let's see what. I did actually. What is it? There's a story in the Ladybug book one involving the hero Stardust.
Okay.
Yeah, because he's a public domain character, and I actually pitched do an anthology, Stardust story, and it didn't make it. So it was like, well, it's kind of a horror story. Let me just bend that a little bit. And the my fears of fascism kind of like fall into that story.
Yes, it's justified. It's a very justified fear.
Yes, it is. And with some of the other ones are kind of like spooky, fun stories. And one story in that was, have you ever heard? I'm sure you've heard of the story of the ghost hitchhiker.
Yeah, everyone. I think everyone has. Yeah.
Yeah, and I was listening to an audio book about one such story, and it started to occur to me that I've heard this story so many times, but I've never heard it through the point of view of a parent, of the parents that these drivers come, and the parents have to tell them like, no, our daughter was a ghost the whole time. So I started thinking, like, what is that like? What if you're like a parent and, like, I don't know, once a week, strangers come to your house to tell you that they brought your daughter home and turned out to be a ghost, and they what would that be like? Just week after week of experiencing, and that dread turned into that story that I put into the Ladybug book, which is called "Don't Be Late," and actually that turned out to be one of my favorite stories.
That I love the concept of like flipping that on its head. I really do like just that idea of going through that trauma, and when does that trauma become like numbness?
Yeah, and that's kind of what I approached in that story, because I came up with the idea of having it go on for years. Like, there's shock at first, and then acceptance, and then it just kind of becomes painful again. What was it? I gave it to a friend of mine to read. She referred to it as an emotional roller coaster, which I've never had anybody describe anything I've written that way. So it's like, oh, okay, I must have kind of like hit something there. But that's kind of sometimes the way I work. I either they come from my true feelings, or I'm communicating something that I don't see voiced in your common tropes or stories.
That's I love that answer. Actually, like I wanted to. Here's an interesting question for you regarding you did a talk about public domain superheroes and having doing a story with them. Have you considered putting some of those public domain superheroes in Red Knight, since you could basically just do that? And on top of that, as a creator, here's just to add on to that. Do you think, like, using these in public domain superheroes, like, you can tell these kind of stories with recognizable characters, such as, like, how Dynamite's doing stuff with, like, Project Superpowers, and some other writers have done stuff with in public domain superheroes, because, like, those characters are kind of lost, and bringing them back to tell new stories that you couldn't really tell because certain companies own certain rights.
Exactly. That is something I've considered, and I do have a way of bringing them in. I could either like have them be like new heroes that have just are incorporating or operating in Red Knight's universe in the present day, or I could like go back and like, oh no, these are the characters like in the 40s and 50s,
like a JSA kind of thing.
Yeah, like a JSA thing. I've thought about that. I have considered. I mentioned Stardust. I've considered bringing him into the fold. I haven't yet pulled that trigger, frankly. I'm not sure why. Maybe it's just the stubbornness of like, no, I just want to, create my own characters, or maybe it's just the fear, like, oh man, what if somebody comes along and says, oh no, I really did, my estate, still owns that character. It's like, oh damn, like I made that character very important. But I fear like, oh man, if I just do an incorrect Google search, I might get myself in trouble. So I'm still considering it. There are some characters. I am folding the King Arthur legend in the Red Knight universe. There is a
nice.
There is a present day. It's not King Arthur himself, but there is a present day Pendragon who is the wielder of Excalibur in the Red Knight universe.
Okay.
She will be coming shortly. She actually makes a cameo in this arc, and she'll be appearing in more. I have big plans for her. There's a couple other characters I'm contemplating using that I haven't really started the work on that yet. So I don't know. It's one of those things. It's like pick and choose. It's so funny. Like, you can play with these characters, but there's still a hesitation, at least on my part, to use them.
Yeah, God knows I've wanted to use like a lot of in public domain superheroes, but it's so weird because there's like some you can, and then there's others where it's like, well, I could do a story with like the Green Llama. What do you mean Dynamite trademarked him?
Yeah, it's like that's another thing. It's like you have to be kind of careful that your character isn't too similar to someone else. Like anybody can use Snow White, for instance, but like, oh boy, you better be careful how your Snow White looks. As well as Dracula. Like I've thought about using Dracula for something for years. I wouldn't use him in Red Knight, but I would be tempted to do something with the character. But like, if you use a public domain character, you have to kind of find your voice for it. Like, what's my take on this particular character? So it doesn't look too much like someone else's version.
Yeah. See, my like going to Dracula Fest, my interpretation of Dracula has always been like he's been both the warlord and like the plague. Basically, he's basically a walking disease, and there's also this because I don't think people realize, and and to be fair, this history is kind of muddled. Vlad Tepes is allegedly the descendant of Attila, the Hun. So there's kind of like this warrior blood in him, and I've always liked the idea of making of Dracula this. He's not happy with pretending to be like this aristocrat kind of like, ooh, I'm sexy and all that, and like, I can seduce people. No, he was bred to be a warrior. He was bred to be this conqueror, and he needs that, and to be immortal. He's like, I live through I've basically been living for centuries watching the world change around me when I'm still like, I still want to be the fighter. I still want a good fight. I want a good war.
Yeah. And that's, I don't know, Dracula, he is like split off into so many different interpretations. It's like, where do I go or to find my interpretation? So it's just one of those things about public domain characters, and a superhero from the Golden Age that's been like in 5 comics and hasn't reappeared in 80 years. That's a little bit different. That's a little bit easier.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's something I have. And actually, a lot of these kind of characters could fit into the Red Knight story. The way I've developed this universe, but I still haven't decided.
Okay. I mean, there's a plethora to go around, so I think you'll find something if not anything. So I guess my next question is going to be a little heavier, so you'll have to. I apologize in advance.
All right, let me get ready.
As a independent creator, and this Kickstarter's for your 8th issue, that you have basically been working on since like 2011. Like I've followed this whole thing since like 2011, and you have basically been you've been fighting tooth and nail between several comic companies going under that you worked with, basically rebooting the comic from the ground up. Um, as an independent creator, does that ever like weigh on you?
Yeah, it does, and it's impossible for real life to not you know weigh on you like that. And like you said, yeah, I first started publishing Red Knight under the banner Primal Paper Comics, and that was an unofficial company, like a band of independent creators working together. And eventually, like all things, we kind of like splintered off into our own things, because it wasn't really like a functional company, with anybody in charge and making decisions. We were all kind of doing our own thing just under one banner, and that was kind of hard to just kind of stick around for long. I think we did a pretty decent job considering. So once that happened, I decided to kind of I was gonna just continue with the book, and its numbering under like a different like under a different company, and that kind of didn't happen. And then there was another company that I almost signed with, and I was going to kind of start over, re-releasing the comics in color. Primal Paper, the comic was in black and white, and it was kind of missing something. This comic looks right in color. So when I started negotiations with the other company, I was going to re-release them all in color from number 1 on up, and kind of just start over. And to be honest, it was a good excuse to kind of like iron out the things that I thought like I kind of like overlooked in the first print run. Give me a chance to do kind of a second draft on some of these issues. And then that kind of fell through. So I was like, what, screw this. let me just take the steps to like start my own publishing house, and put the books out myself. And it's a lot of work. It takes a lot of time and money, and that's where Kickstarter comes from. Kickstarter and Patreon conventions help a lot. And it does kind of like frustrate me, because I don't really have writer's block as much, at least with this universe. This storyline, I'm pretty set on what I want to do with it. So that's not really so much the problem. It's just funding can gum up the works. Like I could probably be at 50 issues right now if I didn't have money to worry about. But that's the thing that kind of slows you down. It does discourage you, and I know I see it discourage a lot of other creators. I've had other creators who have like stopped and have told me like, hey, like I'm really happy, excited to see you still doing it, and that makes me feel good. But also, I don't know. I also feel it can be a little depressing when you think about like how just something simple as money can like clamp down on someone's creative juices. It's annoying. But I have kind of recognized that, like, look, I'm gonna get there. The small funds I have to produce the book are gonna take a little bit longer, but I'm gonna get there if I just keep moving. And that's the thing I can just recommend to anybody facing these problems is like, yeah, you don't have to get work out. And I I've long resigned to the fact that I'm not going to be like a millionaire doing this, and that's fine because I want to do this. I want to make this comic. I want to put out these novels, and it takes me a little longer. Fine. And if I die tomorrow, I died while doing the thing I love to do, and that's instead of like dying and going, oh man, I didn't do all that stuff.
Yeah, it does remind me a lot of, what's his name? He created Night Beast and like all these. It was basically the same Alien movie over like 3 times.
Yeah, Don Dohler.
Don Dohler in an interview said that like before he started making his movies, he was working at some company that got robbed and he had a gun to the back of his head, and in that moment he had this like, oh my god, I have to do this movie because it was like a wake up call, and I think that's some of the best like creative like. Are his movies good? They're fun.
Not really.
No, they're fun. We'll say that. But the point being is that it's like it's also like another movie like Benny Loves You, where the guy literally, the director had a midlife crisis and was like, if I don't do this now, I'll never do it again. So I really do appreciate like when people have that mindset of like, hey, I can't just put this off forever because I could just go poof, you know.
Yeah.
So, you know, I really do appreciate when people have this drive to be like, if I don't do this now, when?
Exactly. Yeah, no one's clamoring for me to make my stuff. I have to make my stuff.
Yeah.
You know, no one's like you know, looking to hire me to do it. I got to do it.
Yeah.
And that's all there is to it. So if you want to create. If you need to take a little time, take your time. Be patient. Don't beat yourself over the fact that, you know, you're not making as much money as whatever creator, or you're not putting it out as fast as another person.
Yeah, and that's. I'm sorry to cut you off, man, but like that's kind of something I have to like, as a creator myself, I have to like think, because like, you know, between you and, you know, Matt Denny and another author friend of mine and a few other friends, they've put out like actual like stuff at a massive pace, and I'm just like sitting in it, like feel like I'm not moving fast enough, and that like really hurts me creatively, you know. So I have to. Oh, sorry.
Oh yeah, I go through that too as a YouTuber and as a writer.
Yeah. It's just I think honestly sometimes I have to remind myself, and I really do have to remind myself at points. You know, it's not a race, and even like you and Matt and other creators have like said like, hey, it's not a race, and the longer you work at it, the better you'll get. You know, and I think that's you know that's just that's something I have to remind myself. But I feel like that's good advice for anyone, any aspiring writers or creators out there, or even content creators out there, is that it's not a race, like at all. And it's funny that like I'm happy, but I'm also, I wish I could have that creative flow like you do, Manos. And it's funny because you've told me I wish I had your sub count. And over here I'm like, I wish I had Chris's sub count. Mount Vernon Kid, for those wondering. But
the grass is always greener.
That's very true, that the grass is and always is kind of greener on the other side. But when you get there, it's brown and burnt, and there's like cow dung in it. I just quoted Chicken Run. I never thought I'd do that in my life, where I would just quote as that movie, Chicken Run.
Yep.
But yeah. So anyway, getting back on topic is that, you know, having that kind of like, you know, you have a job, you have a, you are in a relationship with you have Lindsay who is backing you constantly. You have, you know, cons like that are not like, oh, it's fun, I'm going to a con. It's more like, no, this is to keep my, you know, dream going.
Yes.
It is work. And work. You have a job. You have a legit job that you actually have to go to in a few hours. Like, I don't mean to bring that. It's just like the point being is that this isn't like this is passion. This is a passion for you.
Yes. something I have to do, and it's something I related in the comic. Todd McClane needs to be a superhero. He wants to be a superhero, and I didn't mean when I started the project to have this be, in relation to wanting to be a comic book writer, a comic book creator, but it kind of has. I've kind of focused those ideas and energy within, Todd. And there's a scene in issue 3 where Martha Brown, before they make a deal to really work together, she asks him, why are you doing this? I need to know, why do you have to be a superhero? And he goes, I need to be a superhero. It's just something I have to do. It's within me. And she's like, okay. She was, looking for not a negative answer. His motivations are not out of anger or revenge or anything like that. It's just something that just compels him, and it's a compulsion to do good, and he's going to be tested on that a lot in the series, and his faith will be tested, and his ideals will be tested, and we'll see what kind of character he has and what kind of characters he encounters that have come up with different answers.
I think that's a great answer. When you have this kind of character who's and imprinting a lot of that from you, of that drive of what else am I supposed to do? If I didn't do this, I'd hate myself, kind of thing. So I do enjoy that. I think at the core of this character. I guess for one more question, and this is just for fun. Let's just have a fun one, because we had a big emotional beatdown right there.
Let's go.
If you could actually work at the big two, what character would you like to write for each one? If you could only pick one character each from Marvel and DC.
Oh boy. Well, I mean, I would want to do Spider-Man, but Spider-Man looks like a really complicated job. The editors tell you what to do, and then the fans blame you for that.
Yeah, poor Zeb Wells. So, that's all I could say. Poor Zeb Wells.
Yeah, or anybody who's written it over the last 3 years just seems. So maybe not Spider-Man. Or Daredevil. I tend to think about Daredevil a lot. Or She-Hulk. I'm a big She-Hulk fan. But actually, I'll be honest, right now, maybe I do Captain Marvel, because I have a pitch for that.
Okay.
And DC, Cassandra Cain Batgirl. No question. That's the character I most want to write.
Which I'm honestly glad that, that character's finally getting back in the spotlight. She's got her own miniseries. I mean, her own ongoing now, which it's
pretty good.
Yeah. Her dealing with her mama issues.
Yes.
But yeah, I really do like that you pick those characters rather than just going with the generic, I want to do the next big character, because it's harder than that. And that as a creator, there's editorial, there's also mandates from their bosses. There's a ladder, and you take the flack of it, excuse me, as the writer, because that's all the creators see. All the readers see are the writers. They don't see editorial. They don't see upper management. Going back to Zeb Wells, a lot of the shit in his work, some of it's his decisions, and some of them weren't good. But at the same time, a lot of that was editorial, and even Kevin Feige, forcing his work or his ideas into it to connect with the movies. That's something.
Yeah. And that's something. I have ideas. I have a tone that I would like to do if I ever had to write Spider-Man. If I ever had a chance to. I have very specific ideas how to go about it, but I don't know if I'd be allowed to. I don't smaller character down the line, then yeah, you would have a little bit more of a chance. Right, with Marvel right now, like, I don't know. I mean, you might have a little bit better chance with the character not so ingrained with the MCU.
Yeah, if you were like writing, I don't know, a ongoing about some C-list team, or like, because I feel like that, like, those become like underrated hits because no one editorial doesn't give a shit about those characters. Like, so.
Right, well, yeah, it's like, oh wait, you can't do this because we're doing this thing in this film because blah blah blah. It's like, oh, I don't know. That's just kind of frustrating. But let's see. Also, like right now, Marvel is kind of operating on a I don't know if I want to call it a miniseries structure. Or I have actually been thinking about the way they put out books is very similar to streaming shows nowadays, where they don't really do ongoings anymore. They do like a series, like, oh yeah, we're gonna do this series of Spider-Man, Amazing Spider-Man, and then okay, now it's done. Now we're gonna renumber it and do this.
Yeah, or in some,
and that's all the characters, like everybody.
And it's
it's funny how I hear fans not understand that that's what they've been doing for years. DC has more. DC is doing more of the ongoing idea that they're doing ongoings a little bit more, but I'm seeing them also go into that structure in the recent few years.
Yeah, it's also funny that we bring that up because, like, with Marvel doing series, is like we see so many get like ongoings announced, and then they just get canceled, and it's just like a 5-issue arc.
Yeah, and I do think I almost feel like they're either, because sometimes Marvel will put out a book and they're not specific if it's an ongoing or a mini.
Well, I think it all like that Steve Orlando Avengers Assemble comic was meant to be an ongoing, and then it just ended after 5 issues because no one was reading it. Same with David Propose's all new Punisher. That ended in 4 issues when that was clearly pitched as an ongoing.
Yeah, it's kind of frustrating to try and get into a book and, like, I don't know if this is continuing or not. And let's see, it does feel like, oh man, if the first issue or 2 doesn't sell, then it's just this arc. It's just a mini, which is, I don't know, not the best. But it kind of forces you to, I don't know, one of the things I like about an ongoing series that is going to just continue, provided the sales are good, is that you get a chance to develop characters and kind of like have fans revisit the characters and such. But with this type of output, you can only focus on, the story at hand. And, can't really do so much subplots and other characters and slice of life stuff. It has to be all this stuff. Which, I don't know, is a little frustrating to work with. If I was to do Spider-Man, I would definitely, because, there's a lot of, like, slice of life stuff within Spider-Man, which makes him so relatable. And I think that's one of the things that's kind of missing from modern Spider-Man books is that, like, secondary, subplots and that, they don't really focus on anymore.
Yeah. I also, and I'm sorry to cut off, but, like, I always hate this thing of, like, how writers, like, are like, with Spider-Man, it's like, when Peter Parker's up, Spider-Man's down. When Spider-Man's up, Peter Parker's down. I'm like, that doesn't make any goddamn sense, and is like, congratulations, that's not how you want to engage readers with your character. If, like, one side is awesome, the other side sucks, why can't like this character not suffer? I think that's kind of the thing with Spider-Man writers, and also this is probably more again at editorial, is where it's more about like, keeping like Peter Parker as like a baseline knowledge of the character. Does that make any sense?
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah. So I feel like that's kind of the whole thing. But yeah, so I think we've basically covered everything.
Yes.
I hope you all have. For those watching this video, the link to Red Knight Issue 8 Kickstarter is in the description box below. Please go to it. Please support Manos if you love independent creators and want to give more love to independent writers, and also to like see more stories outside of the major corporations and things like that. I thoroughly insist you go in the link in the description box below and support this project.
Thank you. That's exactly right. Like with the plus side of independent superhero books like Red Knight, you don't have to worry about any kind of corporate interfering with the character. The story I'm telling is the story I am telling.
Yeah.
So you don't have to worry about that sort of thing. Like, oh no, I have to get in corporate synergy with the films and video games. Like, no, I don't have to do any of that. I'm telling you, my on a story that I'm putting out. If you back this Kickstarter, you don't have to worry about. If you've never read Red Knight before, you don't have to worry about being confused, because there are add-ons and rewards where you can get the back issues all the way from issue 1 to 7, which was the first part of this arc. So you can be all caught up. You can do this in digital or print, whichever you feel like.
All right. You heard the man. Those are the perks for backing this issue. And yeah, Manos, thank you so much for coming on here, and I'm very happy to support this project. I was like, yeah. You were like, hey, can you help me with get the word out? And I was like, abso-fucking-lutely. So yeah. So once again, to reiterate, please go to the link in the description box below. Head on over to Kickstarter. Help Manos out, continue his dreams as a writer. And yeah, other than that, Manos, thank you so much for coming on here.
Thank you so much for having me. It's always a pleasure talking with you, and it was cool to talk about my work with you this time around.
Yeah. Anyway, other than that, I'm Mr. Multiverse. I'll see you next time in the multiverse.